Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of give a story too of how everything got formed, right, with inductive automation. But yeah, so inductive automation grew up from integration roots. So the Steve Hackman is founder of inductive automation, ran Calmetrics company, which was a integrator in Northern California out of Sacramento, and ran it for over 20 years. Um, and he really was using all the different products that are out there, right? Providing services to end users around the area. He did a lot in food and beverage, especially wineries, like kind of the Charles Shaw, Two Buck Chucks, a lot of like Sutter Home, things like, in Napa. Did a lot of work for them. And did full integration services. They didn't do panel build outs, but they did the PLC programmings, right? They did the SCADA and all of that. And really was kind of just frustrated with what was available. What they can offer to their customers. And so a lot of other integrators decided, hey, I'm going to see if there's nothing off the shelf. So I'm going to try to build software that can help us do more for our customers and feel better about the overall solution that we're providing. And that's where it kind of set off on this adventure. That's how inductive automation really got formed. I came in. So the way the story goes is Steve had had a friend whose son was going to UC Davis as well, and that is Nathan Boger, and he works with Inductive today. And he was doing a lot of IT stuff for the integration, kind of helping with a lot of that. And ultimately, when Steve said, "Hey, I want to build some software," asked, "Do you have any friends who are programmers that we can bring in?" And so Nathan, at being at UC Davis, was good friends with Colby Kleig, who is our CEO today. And he brought him in to build the first product of inductive automation. And that was called Factory SQL. And it was a product that was to bridge PLC data, right? It's OPC to SQL databases. The big thing that Steve was frustrated with was that data was kind of locked and siloed into systems. That he wanted to provide data to more people, right? He was frustrated with like licensing. I can only provide consoles to a few different people or clients to different people, and I can't build out the whole system that I want because I have to limit based on the tag limitations that are there, and the various frustrations in terms of the overall scope of project. He looked at a project and saw, if the overall budget, 80% of that maybe goes to software and hardware, where then 20% was implementation. Well, then you have to cut corners, right? In the 20%, you have to like try to figure out how to delight the customer and provide the full solution with that 20%. He really wanted to flip the coin around, where he could provide the software and hardware costs 20% and everything, provide 80% of of that budget to the implementation, to the integration side of things, and wanted to unlock the data, wanted to put it into a SQL database. That was, technology that was when we started 20 years ago, right? It was very well known and established, and the IT space had to provide a lot of benefits, right? Wanted to get there, get into open format, and wanted to get data to more people. They leveraged some simple web pages and let people see the data that they had, right? And so when Colby came in, he wrote Factory SQL, which was to take data from OPC, put it into a SQL database, and that was it. It just was a bidirectional data bridge. And it took data from RS links as an OPC server. We didn't have drivers in the product then. There was, because because OPC existed, we were able to make that work. And Steve, it's a really cool. We have it kind of framed, but he drew up his vision of what that product looked like on a piece of paper. We'll call it like our napkin drawing, right? It was like the beginnings of inductive automation. Drew up what this interface should look like, and mainly Factory SQL, and Colby made that a reality. I think they did that within a couple of weeks when they first came in. And it was, if you're not familiar with Ignition today, well, Ignition, the Factory SQL transitioned into a module Ignition called SQL Bridge. And it was focused on these things called transaction groups. And transaction groups were just simple groups that you would bring in data from OPC, so various data points, and you would then map them to a database table and to columns. So maybe I want to update a record in the database, or maybe I want to insert a new record history. It was really just to bridge the data, map it between OPC and that SQL database. So have that data stored, because once it's in there, we can query it and do all sorts of fun stuff, right? With that. And so, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, just to confirm, as someone who's, I want to say, like, very interested in startups and how, I want to say, like, those things really took place. So I just want to confirm that the initial minimum viable product was that bridge, right? Versus, I think
Right.
now a lot of people rave about the interface, and we see the cool like web screens that you can build on the SCADA. But at the time, customers were able to install that bridge, and that was a big problem that was solved at the time. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. So it was, that was the original product. Now we so Colby came in first, and there was a need for the front end. So you're absolutely right. So you're spot on there, Vlad. We need to have the front end, and so Colby did bring in Carl Gould, who is our CTO, and Carl was a Java programmer, and especially specifically Java Swing too in the front end side. And he came in to start building out what we call Factory PMI, which was the plant management interface, which is the front end to that data. So the SQL database has been the center of our model, right? Factory SQL put data in the database. Factory PMI would query that database. Now, when so Colby and I have actually been friends and grew up together, and actually we bowled in leagues as youth, and that's sort of how we met, right? And so I was a couple years behind him in college, but because of my interest in databases and the interest in terms of building web applications, I was brought in, and it was really to start developing and well, not developing, excuse me, but to put the Factory SQL product into customers, for Calmetrics as customers, right? And integrate that solution. And so when I came in, Factory PMI wasn't completed yet. So we were building website front ends over on PHP for these customers. And this was all meant to be only for the integration company, right? We weren't a software company yet. We were just building it for our own customers. Um, and so,
What was the year? Sorry, Travis, to interrupt, just so we can put
yeah,
a timeline. Curious on the PHP
that
side as
was
well. What was the year?
2003 is when Colby first came in, Factory SQL. 2004 is when I came in and started doing some implementations, on the integration side for those customers. And around 2005 is when Factory PMI was ready, and where we had that full, and that's when inductive automation officially formed. In terms of the DBA of Hackman Enterprises, there was Calmetrics, and then there was inductive automation. So that's how that story goes. Um, it's a really cool story. I mean, ultimately, Steve just wanted to provide better solutions to his customers, and said like we can do this, we can write it, and there's nothing off the shelf, and that's a kind of a common story for all integrators, right? But it is not every integrator has been successful in to be able to build the kind of software company that we have built here today, and it is kind of sentiment to a lot of Steve's direction and his vision that he had early on.